All right, thanks so much for joining us, staying with us, everyone. You're watching What Now? Now let's turn attention to other stories. From 25th of November to 10th of December, the world marks the 16 days of activism to end gender-based violence. Under this year's theme, Unite to End Digital Violence Against All Women and Girls. Violence against women and girls affects 1 in 3 women worldwide. And as we enter the 30th anniversary of the landmark Beijing Declaration, the UN is sounding the alarm on one of the fastest growing threats, digital abuse. Online spaces that should empower women have instead become dangerous grounds. Millions face harassment, cyber-stalking, non-consensual image sharing, sexualized deepfakes, hate speech, and doxing. And that's abuse that often escalates into real-world violence. The impact is especially severe for activists, journalists, women in politics, and anyone facing intersecting discrimination. But momentum for change is growing. Like we said, momentum for change is growing, and that's what we'll be discussing with our next guest, UN Women Nigerian Deputy Representative Patience Ekioba. She joins me from our Abuja studio. Good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me.
So we've seen a lot of advocacy aimed at ending gender-based violence, especially this year. In countries like South Africa, we saw protests, really mass protests. What impact has that had in shifting cultural norms and legislative gaps?
Thank you very much. Before I respond, I'd like to thank TVC for inviting us. We're very glad that TVC is one of the media organizations that is also putting the spotlight on the 16 days of activism. So thank you for having us. I want to say that the momentum that we have seen is not just in South Africa, but globally. The advocacy to end gender-based violence has been intense, and I think there's a growing concern across the world to ensure that gender-based violence becomes a thing of the past. And I think in Nigeria also we've done very well in terms of creating awareness. We've done a lot in terms of ensuring that people understand what violence means. And we're happy that this year there's a new tweak to it for us to look at online violence, and I think it is really timely. In terms of what we have seen, we've seen people speaking out more than ever before, including victims and survivors, and these are very positive outcomes that we're seeing. We've also seen, in terms of changing norms, we've also seen a lot of partners who in the past were never really on board, like traditional rulers, religious leaders, who they are now on board. They are making declarations. A lot of them in their communities are doing quite a lot to ensure that people, do not just understand what violence means, but actually stay away from perpetuating violence. Some of them have also taken steps to ensure that perpetrators are brought to book. So there are stringent rules, written or unwritten codes that people are now, putting in place to ensure that, violence becomes a thing of the past. In terms of legislation, I think we've done very well in Nigeria. We have a lot of robust frameworks we have to manage, but it's not impossible. There are countries across the world who have started putting in place systems and structure to track and to bring people to book. And I think that Nigeria is also making some strides. Just to say that as part of the 16 days for this year, we're also going to be sitting with a lot of people in the tech world. We're going to be sitting with government who is responsible for policies and laws. We're going to be sitting with tech companies. We're going to be sitting with, law enforcement agencies who should, actually be dealing with perpetrators. We're all going to be sitting together to say, okay, we really do need a framework. I know that even as we speak, there are some bills that are in the House. People are pushing to see how we can have a stronger management of online violence. So this, it's not rocket science. We have to sit down as a country to really evaluate what the current situation are, and then to see how we can actually address this. To say that a lot of people are actually doing quite a lot. We have a lot of people working to ensure that We even understand the nature and the magnitude of the issues that we're talking about. And very clearly, we see that it's a huge challenge. We know people who have committed suicide because, they were either stalked and harassed and, molested by people who took advantage and all of that. So it's a huge problem, like you have said, but it is not impossible. We believe that if we put in place the right things, we can begin to see better reporting, because currently what we have, we can't describe it as great. We still have poor reporting when it comes to online violence. So, and it's because worse, we currently do not have a structure.
And it's even worse with this, in this era of cancel culture, where one person can post and then becomes viral, and then, everybody takes on the victim. But I wanted to talk about the burden of proof, which has been one of the biggest challenge. People believe that the victim's word should not be enough, because you also don't want to punish or send an innocent person to jail. But most times what we find is that under that circumstance, there is not enough room to gather evidence. And so I'm wondering what should be the approach to resolving that challenge.
I think you're correct. The burden of proof is always a challenge, even with physical violence. Sometimes people get raped and they say, okay, you need to be able to demonstrate that you actually raped. When it comes to violence, perpetrators will always want to make it look as if it's impossible. But I'm telling you that as we speak, we're already thinking about a lot of training. We're thinking about how to train different community on digital literacy. I think that is where it starts. People need to understand that, I go to this Facebook, I go to this Instagram, I go to this YouTube or whatever. These are some of the things I need to know and how to protect myself. So we're going to be doing a lot of, social mobilization, talking to people about what they need to know, because first and foremost, we believe that when people are empowered, they are able to protect themselves. We're also going to be doing a lot with law enforcement agencies so that we can work together to enhance their capacity to be able to garner evidence, because like you said, those are always the challenge. But like we will always say, it is good to believe perpetrators on one hand, because if we keep, shoving victims or survivors aside, not listening to their stories, we're just going to, bury their voice. So first and foremost is to believe what has been said, and then we also go the next hug to make sure that we garner the evidence that is required. These are some of the teaching things that we will be working with different stakeholders to ensure that we put together, so that people know how to gather evidence. People know how to take photos. Maybe somebody is stalking you and sending you things. They should be able to know how to record those things. They need to know how to, snapshot some of these things, so that when it is time to actually prove, you are able to have those evidence. And like you said, most times people want to even incapacitate the survivors so that they are not able to, put this evidence together. But I think with a lot of sensitization, which is part of what we're doing here, I believe that to a large extent we'll be able to solve the problem. In the past, it was always very difficult to prove rape cases, but these days people are wiser, they know what to do, people can record, and I think also now people can also store evidence and be able to show that. But what is so important is that there needs to be a very strong collaboration between different partners that are working on this, with the United Nations system, the government, the civil society, women's group. We all need to work together and also bring our expertise to bear to make sure that we're able to support people who go online.
I have like a minute left, and I do not want to end this conversation without talking about this, because when we talk about gender-based violence, more often than not, we don't speak about the men. And there are a lot of male survivors who do not come out to report, and that's because of the burden of expectation from society on what masculinity should look like. And I'm wondering how we should break this barrier to ensure that men are also speaking up.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Men are also victims in many instances. First, victim of wrong socialization. So we socialize men to believe that, they are macho, they shouldn't cry, they shouldn't express. When you speak up, it means that you're weak. We need to begin to change those narratives. We need to begin to school our children, our male children, differently, to say that, look, it's okay for you to be able to speak out when you are being violated. just like we're doing with the female children. But I know that because most times people have been schooled for a very long time that, look, you need to be macho, you need to be strong. Most people lose their voice in that process. So men need to be re-socialized to understand that even though you are a man, when you face violence, you should speak up. And then people fear a lot of stigma. If I say this, people are going to laugh at me, oh, you are a woman rapper or that kind of a thing. I think people need to be also empowered. Men need to be empowered to know that, look, it's okay. It's okay to actually come out. And it's okay even when you are, if you're stigmatized, we also need to give tools for people to be able to walk through stigmatization. Sometimes in this country and globally, it was very difficult to talk about HIV and AIDS. But because of the efforts and the capacitation that was out there in the public, people living with HIV were able to come out to say, oh, I'm living with HIV, oh, I'm taking drug, or the rest of them. So we can do the same thing with men who have been violated. We need to make them understand that it's okay for society, to laugh at you, to do all of this, but you have a right to be able to speak up because it's your life. Right. And then we also need to create a lot of counseling pathway for our men. Men also need a lot of counseling. Unfortunately, in Africa, we have socialized men to believe that, oh, you don't need those kind of help. So it's about it's about changing those narratives, really. Right. It's about using men's network to be able to capacitate men, whether it's in church group where they belong, whether it's in other groups, using football as an entry point, but really talking to men to know that, look, when you are violated, men and boys, when you are violated, and we know cases where, house help molest young boys. We have to empower our children to know that their bodies are their bodies, and their body belongs to them and not to any other person.
Point, but I'm afraid we do have to leave it there because of time. And I'm hoping that as women are speaking up, men also speak up. Thank you so much for your time. UN Women Nigeria Deputy Representative Patience Ekeba. Very interesting conversation with you. Thank you.
Acting Deputy, please.
Acting Deputy. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for watching.